Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
George.
Dr. Cook, it's good to see you.
Hey, it's you too. Good to be
Welcome,
here.
everybody, to a call with Dr. Cook. Today is Wednesday, May 1st. It's already May 2024, and we have a packed agenda today. We have got so many fun things. I almost said funny things, Dr. Cook. I see my mind's going way too fast already.
That's right. You're adding syllables you don't need to.
We have added lots of things, including a new common foods category to the Limbic Arc Library. How amazing is that? Dr. Cook, we have added 264 new ingredients, and they're all common foods. Talk to us a little bit about these ingredients.
Well, I would expect, George, that none of us eat 264 different foods.
Yeah.
And a lot of these foods, by the way, are spices. So you might see things that show up that are like, I'm not even sure I ever have eaten that, but it may be a spice that is in something, you just don't know what it is. But, we're going to go through this. So I'll kind of show you how we use it and how it's designed to be used, I should say.
Well, the exciting thing here is there's now options that we haven't had before. I mean, there's always been a great library, but a lot of times it's been, other things. But now that we've got these common foods, there's going to be some exciting new ways to use it. And so let me just remind everybody, if you would like to, we post this as well as other calls with Dr. Cook on our YouTube channel. And so please feel free to take a listen, pass it along, share the links. You can also see links on our limbicarc.com homepage. But we've got so much to talk about, Dr. Cook. I'm excited to look about how common foods and actual things that I can do through my diet to help supplement my limbic arc experiences.
Well, let me share my screen, George, and we'll dive into a few slides here. Can you see that okay?
I do. I see something that our attorneys like to see.
Yeah, our disclaimer. Well, and it's important to put it there because we don't want people to think that this is a medical device. It's not. It doesn't diagnose. It doesn't treat or cure. It's designed to improve the quality of your life.
Right.
And that's the goal. So. Right. Today's presentation is titled Weekly Foods to Avoid.
Wow. Okay.
And what I'm going to do is just step through this new protocol, and that's what you're going to see on the screen here. So the first slide shows you where you start.
Okay, so if I'm adding an info boost, this is what I'm going to see.
Well, yes, if you're going to use this Foods to Avoid protocol.
Okay.
So you're doing a custom info boost. Okay. And so you click on the custom button there, and then you click on this button that shows up, and then you're going to do a spark scan. And the important thing here is you do a spark scan.
I was going to say, you have to do a spark scan for this to be functional.
Yeah. And then you hit the continue button, and a lot of this people will say, well, I know that. Why are you showing me? It's review here. Okay, so then you hit the continue button, and then it says, can you use your microphone? Yes, allow that. And then start recording, and then you're going to speak into your phone, not necessarily into your microphone. But what should you talk about here? Well, you can talk about anything. What we're looking at is what foods to avoid as it relates to whatever it is I'm talking about. But when I did this the other day, I talked about, I'm looking for some foods to avoid. I talked about foods specifically. So that's what I did, but you don't have to, you're not limited to that.
But if you talk about it in a negative way or a positive way, just as long as your intent is focused on your diet.
Yes, or on a particular outcome, and and how is diet playing into that?
Okay.
And we can talk about that a little bit more here, but let's finish through these few slides. So then you've got your recording done, and you click on the continue button. and the flower shows up and it's going to move around. You're going to click on it 5 times or touch it with your finger. And then it's going to finalize the scan. And that scan, it's going to scan the entire library. And the library now with these new foods has 1,300 items in it. And all of those items get prioritized. That's what the percentage number represents. It's just a prioritization.
Okay.
So then you're gonna type in a name. So foods to avoid is what I typed in for the name of my info boost. And then you go down to the this button, optimized boost ingredients, and you click on the ingredient categories, and you're going to scroll down to common foods. That's a new one. And when you open that up, you'll see that it shows the high number here at the top, and you're going to scan all the way to the bottom. Because what we're interested in is to find out the foods that you are showing the lowest priority for. And when you get to the bottom, this is what I saw. So asparagus was the bottom, and tuna, barramundi, I think that's the way it's pronounced. Tarragon.
That's fish, right? Yeah.
It is. Brewer's yeast and bone broth. Now, let's see here. I think I just scanned over one. There we go. I hit the button, sorry. What you may find is in this list that shows up at the bottom, foods that you never eat. And so what you can do in that case is just ignore those.
Okay.
Now, with one caution. The one caution is I may say, look, tarragon, I never eat tarragon. Well, I don't know if I ever eat tarragon. It's a spice. It may be in some of the foods that I eat. And so I don't want to just dismiss it without knowing what I'm doing. But if it is something like, for example, look up this list, 12% rabbit. I don't eat rabbit. I mean, the last time I ate rabbit was probably 30 years ago. I don't know, just a long time ago. So if that showed up at the bottom of the list, I wouldn't necessarily need to worry about avoiding it because it's just not going to come onto my plate in the next week. Okay, so the next thing you do is you then check all of those items. So, and you don't have to be exhaustive. You can see that I've taken just the bottom 6. You might want to take the bottom 3 or the bottom 4. You don't want to take too many because the goal of this protocol isn't to burden your life with a bunch of foods to avoid. It's to avoid the foods that you're showing the lowest preference for. And, I could even say, look, I do eat asparagus and I do eat tuna. Barramundi, I hardly ever eat that. So I'm just going to take the bottom 2. I mean, that would be okay.
Right.
So you select you put the X by those guys. That's going to put them into your info boost. And then what I do is I come over to these homeopathic potencies and I'm going to select the top. In this case, I'm taking the top 4. Now, what I would normally do is the top 3 or 4. And the reason, what I'm doing here is I am taking the foods, I am adding a homeopathic potency to them to kind of refine the presentation of the information that my body's going to get through the field effect that limbic arc uses. And this is not designed to be a cure for a food allergy. So when you run this scan, don't think that we're diagnosing food allergies. That's not what's happening. But at the same time, what I want to do is I want to put this into an info boost. I want to use it as an enriched piece of information. And so in order to enrich it, because I know how homeopathy works, I do these potencies.
Okay.
Do you have to do that? No, you don't have to. But that's the way I do it. So I'm just showing you what I do.
I know a lot of times, Dr. Cook, people have always selected the items at the top that they have the biggest preference for, and they've ignored the bottom. So now what you're doing is you're saying, no, pick the bottom ones, but pair it with the homeopathic potency.
Yeah, there's a clinical strategy, actually, and and I don't know if we should talk about this, but if I was allergic to asparagus, as an example, there is a dilution of asparagus that I will not react negatively to.
Right.
And so if I go to my doctor and my doctor says, well, we're going to give you asparagus antigen, but we're going to give it to you at such a at the correct dilution. And what we're doing is we're re-educating your body as to what asparagus is. It's not something you should react negatively to. So we're kind of retraining your body, and you go through a process of dilutions. This is kind of like that, only this is information-based. And again, this is not intended to diagnose an allergy to asparagus. That's not what I'm seeing here. And my strategy here is not going to cure my allergy to asparagus if one existed. So,
well, and what we're looking at, asparagus may be something in the future that would be high on your list instead of low. I mean, your body goes through different things, and just because it's there now doesn't mean it will always be there. So this is looking at a spot in time, right? So
right, and that's why this is a 1 week protocol. Okay, so the next thing I do then is I go back to all ingredients, and you know that the program, the Limbic Arc program, automatically selects the top 10. In this case, I want to deselect those. So I go in and I uncheck those top 10. So I have to go into this all ingredients to do that. And then I go into my duration tab and I set this info boost for 6 days because I'm going to repeat this in 7 days. It's a 1 week protocol. And then you hit the activate button, and that turns on the info boost. And along the way, or at this point, you need to make a list. And so you can, once you've activated it, you can click on this information button. It will open up the protocol or the list of things that are in the info boost. And you just write those down, put a date on it here, and then you stick that on your fridge, and that reminds you, okay, these are the foods I'm not going to eat this week. And I put a date so I know, that's my start date. That is the protocol. And the question might be to someone, okay, so what do I expect? What should I look for? What you can look for, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, George. Okay. Put us back on the screen here. Again, you want to look for improved quality of life.
Yeah! Now, my friends, for the fun part of my day. This is the latest thing for me. Now, as you look around and see these paintings, if you're in this room here, you'd almost have to be in awe, especially when you realize that I just started painting recently. The first time I picked up a paintbrush, I was 78 years old. I had no idea I could paint.
I got to know Bert Goldman when he was in his 80s, and this man just absolutely blew me away. Bert was able to achieve extraordinary feats using quantum jumping, and was able to pick up new skills seemingly like magic well into his 80s. Every time I'd see him, he would pick up something new. So most people in their 80s are in retirement mode. Not Bert. He became a photographer with exhibited works. He started painting and produced a huge amount of art. He even taught himself to play the piano. And he didn't stop there. He created huge amounts of books, fiction and non-fiction. He, in his 80s, taught himself to build a website and became a digital entrepreneur. Some of his top websites were doing millions a year, selling his philosophies and meditations. And he claimed he was able to do all of this, succeeding as an online entrepreneur, a photographer, an artist, a musician, all by being able to tap into alternate versions of himself and download the skills from the multiverse. So if this sounds crazy, stay tuned. My name is Vishen Lakhiani and I run Mindvalley, which is the world's biggest platform for human transformation. Over 20 million people follow Mindvalley, and quantum jumping is one of the most popular protocols that we teach. When I first heard about the remarkable achievements Bert was having with quantum jumping in his 80s, I knew that this was one of the Rolls Royces of personal development. So how did Bert get there? Well, he told me this. He said, Vishen, I simply go into an altered state of mind. I tap into the multiverse. I imagine myself projecting into any type of universe I want. There's a universe where I'm a billionaire. There's a universe where I'm a musician. There's a universe where I'm an artist. There's a universe where I'm an actor. I project into these universes, observe these alternate versions of myself, and then absorb their skills, beliefs, and insights. And that, he said, was his secret. I asked Bert if he could teach the technique. He said yes. I was his very first student, and he asked me to help him come up with a name for the technique. Back then, I was really into the TV show Quantum Leap, so I came up with the name Quantum Jumping. I didn't realize how big quantum jumping would go. And today, if you open up TikTok or even Reddit, people are talking about quantum jumping decades later. But what many people miss is that it was this man who developed the technique and popularized it. Bert and I launched the first quantum jumping website in 2008, and we recorded this animated video that explains how quantum jumping works. Listen to it because it's so important to me that you hear Bert's voice. This gentle man had this beautiful voice that could put you in the most relaxed state of mind. Watch.
Hi, my name is Bert Goldman, and let me ask you something. When you were a child, what sort of fantastic dreams did you have? Did you want to be a planet-hopping astronaut? A brilliant scientist who discovers a cure for cancer? Maybe a record-breaking athlete with a cabinet of Olympic medals? A billionaire entrepreneur with a mansion on every continent? Well, what happened to those dreams? I'll tell you what happened. You grew up, and you started living in the real world. Your teachers told you to stop daydreaming. Your parents told you to be realistic, get a steady job and a mortgage. And before you knew it, your childhood dreams had vanished into thin air. But what if somewhere out there, in an alternate universe, there's a you who turned all those dreams into reality? Scientists like Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein have long speculated on the existence of alternate universes. So imagine that somewhere out there, in these alternate universes, there's a version of you for everything you've ever wished you could be. A version of you as a billionaire. A version perhaps as a celebrity, a philanthropist, an inventor you. Now imagine there was a way you could tap into these alternate universes and connect with alternate versions of yourself. What if you could meet the successful you and learn from that success how to boost your wealth and career, even if you've been stuck in a rut for years? What if you could talk to the athletic you and find out how to get that fit, sexy body you've always wanted, even if you've never been able to shake off those extra pounds? Or what if you could meet the Casanova you and figure out how to attract your dream partner, even though you've never had much luck in love? So, welcome to the world of quantum jumping.
Let me show you some wild evidence. In 2010, I decided to rent a car and drive for 2.5 hours from San Diego out into the deserts to visit Bert Goldman. When I came to Bert's home and I stepped into his house, the first thing that blew me away was his photography. These pictures are gorgeous. They almost have a 3D look. And then he showed me his paintings. I love his paintings. Many of these art pieces today are being sold for $10,000 to $20,000 or more. In fact, many collectors who own his art at this point refuse to sell it because they know how valuable his art is going to be. But Bert didn't stop there. Check out his musical ability.
You know something? I don't really know how to play the piano. But then again, when you've heard me play, you say, well, he must know something. You know, I really don't. I know about the keys. So I don't read music. I don't know one chord. I don't usually play too many black keys. I don't know what they do. I can learn, I know, but I don't want to, because I wanted to prove that you can go to your doppelganger, your twin self, and be successful. And I bring back the rhythm of a pianist.
And what's crazy is that when I visited him, he had only started playing the piano 4 months before. He told me he quantum jumped into a reality where he was this incredible musician and he learned how to play the piano, and it became so easy for him. Bert was like this absolutely loving uncle to me. I learned so much from him. I was so touched that when I visited him that day, he gave me one of his most beautiful mosaic photography pieces that hangs today in the beautiful Mind Valley office. I learned so much from him, and I'm so grateful that we shared these beautiful moments together. Now, if Bert could do all of these amazing things in his 80s, what does that mean for you? Stick around till the end, because I'm going to share with you everything you need to know to have your first quantum jump. But first, let me tell you about the man who developed this methodology, because his story is equally fascinating. Bert developed this fascination for the human mind because of a mysterious incident that happened towards the end of World War II. So Bert was a sergeant in the US Army, and in 1945, with the defeat of Japan, American soldiers were stationed in Korea just south of the 38th parallel. Now, Bert was a really loving, friendly person. A sergeant in the army, he would roam the countryside of Korea and meet local Koreans and get to know them. And he made friends with a guy called Kim. One day, while roaming the countryside with Kim, Bert developed this aching migraine. And Kim said, wait, I know a man who can help you. So Kim takes Bert home and puts Bert in a room and has Bert wait there. And this strange-looking man comes in. This man starts doing mysterious things with his hands, playing with energy. And Bert's migraine completely disappears. So Bert turns to Kim and goes, who the heck was that? And Kim says, well, that is a mudang. A mudang is a Korean shaman. And what he was doing was manipulating chi and using energy to transform Bert's reality. This was Bert's first introduction to metaphysics. So when Bert left Korea and went back to the United States, his mind was filled with questions. He wanted to understand this unseen world, and he went deep to learn from the greatest teachers of his time. One of those teachers was the late, great Paramahansa Yogananda, famous for his book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And it was revealed recently that this book was Steve Jobs' favorite book. It was the only book he had in his iPad. And at his funeral, he gave this book to everyone. Autobiography of a Yogi is a remarkable book. And Yogananda was one of Bert Goldman's first teachers. Bert became a disciple of Yogananda, but he didn't stop there. He went on to study Ericksonian hypnosis, eye movement therapy, EFT, EMDR, NLP, Feng Shui, Qigong, tapping, the 7 principles of Hermes, yoga, meditation, labyrinth octave programming, and one of the protocols that most changed his life, the Silva Mind Control Method with Jose Silva. Bert Goldman became a master of the Silva Mind Control Method. He became Jose Silva's #1 instructor. And that was how him and I got connected. Now, to understand quantum jumping, I want you to remember this abbreviation, AIR. AIR. A stands for altered states. You need to go into an altered state of mind. Most of us are functioning at the beta.
And because you are using this information to make a chemical intervention. And that's really what's happening here. If I look at this information and say, okay, I'm not going to eat asparagus and tuna, I may find that during the next week, I feel better. And that's an experiment with chemistry. Avoid the actual chemicals in the asparagus and the tuna and see if it has an impact on you. So pay attention to that. The other thing that will happen with this protocol is you will develop a more mature, a more functional relationship with food. You may be ravenous. How can I say this? Sometimes we just eat recklessly. And we don't want to change that because we don't want to have the discipline that we think has to come with controlling our diet or what we eat. Well, what this protocol will do is it will, in a very non-threatening way, retrain your relationship or reset your relationship with food.
Right.
Can I not eat asparagus and tuna and tarragon? Can I not eat these 6 foods for a week? Yeah, I can. That's not hard for me to do. So do that. And by doing that, I become more disciplined. I become more in control of what I eat as opposed to what I eat controlling me. So that's the other thing you're going to notice. And so you may find that you actually lose weight because of this protocol. This is not intended to be a diet by any means, but if I have a more mature relationship with food, then it's more likely that I'm going to eat what I need and not what I don't need. So the other thing you look for is if a food, so next week when I repeat this, if the same food shows up at the bottom of the list or close to the bottom, if I can see it on that screen, and then it shows up again the next week, you might then take that as an indication that there's really some reason I should not eat this, period.
Right.
I will tell you an experience I had recently. I was doing this protocol as we were developing it, and chocolate showed up.
Oh, no.
I know, it's terrible. Especially dark chocolate.
Oh, no.
And I was eating quite a bit of dark chocolate. We've got, close to my home, there's this company that makes the best chocolate in the United States, and I could buy it wholesale. So I'd go down and buy a lot of chocolate, and I was enjoying it. Well, chocolate shows up. Excuse me, and I think, okay, well, I can not eat chocolate for a week, so I didn't. And then it showed up again the next week, and I thought, okay, well, I'll avoid it this week. And at the end of that week, I happened to have an opportunity to eat some chocolate, some really good, rich chocolate, which I ate. And it created this very miserable physical experience when I ate it. And I realized, okay, maybe I have a real problem with chocolate. And I was just masking it because I was eating so much chocolate. Well, the next week, when I repeated the protocol, chocolate shows up again. And so at that point, I'm convinced, okay, I'm not going to eat chocolate. So I just quit eating chocolate, period. And lo and behold, I got healthier noticeably. I mean, I could tell a difference. And that just came from the experiment. Now, will you have, or will everybody have that kind of experiment or that kind of a result? I don't know, because again, this is not designed to cure a problem or cure a disease. But is my life improved because I don't eat chocolate now? And the answer is yes. Sadly, it is.
Well, and again, we have sensitivities. Look, we should all pay more attention to what we put in our mouths and what we eat, and also what we don't eat. And maybe just the consciousness of that can help us be just a little bit more aware.
Yeah. And this protocol will do that. It'll be fun to hear what people report from the protocol. The other thing I like about it, George, is it brings me back to limbic arc on a regular basis. Yeah. It brings me back to gather information that I then take action on. Right. It's more proactive than just hitting an info boost and then going about my business.
Markovics Béla vagyok, a Mabei Kft. Ügyvezetője, immár több mint 30 éve.
You have to do a little bit more. And I like
if
that.
If you literally write down these ingredients and post it on your fridge, I love that constant reminder. And again, it's an experiment, and let's see how it goes for the week. But boy, you can do that, and I love that suggestion.
Now, the other thing you could do, George, is when you get that list, you could take a screenshot of your phone or something and print that out. So if you don't want to write it down, there's alternatives to that. But the important thing is put it on the fridge so you can see and remind yourself, don't eat these.
Right. Well, and I like the example that you gave us. You actually selected the items you're going to avoid, so you could refer back and see those items in Limbic Arc. In fact, you showed us earlier how to do that. So
yeah, I know
that
your boost history.
Yeah, I know there are going to be so many questions about this, Dr. Cook. With all of these additions to the library, I'm sure we'll have many more conversations and questions and all kinds of things, about the foods and how to use them and different protocols. I mean, you've shown us very clearly what not to eat. And that's an example maybe most people hadn't considered. Clearly, there are other ways you can use this too, even to identify products maybe you should include.
And that certainly would be appropriate. Go to the top of the list. Maybe you want to eat the foods at the top a little bit more than you do. Right.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So my mind's buzzing. There are a million questions. I'm looking at I know we've got a few questions that we had specifically built up for this, Dr. Cook. Maybe if we could go through a couple of these really quickly, the last 10 minutes that we have. Okay, so we know that a spark scan is critical for doing this, right? After doing a spark scan, if a food shows up as a low percentage, does that mean I should not eat that food? And I know you talked about this a little bit, but people are going to wonder what that means and how long that will be.
Well, it's just the low number means that your body has a low preference. In other words, of all the things that we scanned, which ones do you show the least interest in? And it's the ones with the low number. So for whatever reason, we're not saying it's because you're allergic to it. It's because it's bad for you. We're not saying those things. It's just for some reason your body says, yeah. And so take the foods that are, yeah, and don't eat them.
Right.
I'm not sure how you translate, yeah, but I hope it works.
You know what? Our marketing guys are going to have to figure that out, Dr. Cook. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So this is just a trial. Just try it and see if you feel better, right? Okay. So let's get a little more specific. Let's say someone is, now we've added a bunch of items to the library. And so somebody's not doing a food scan. Maybe they're just doing a regular scan, maybe for sleep or for pain or for other things like that. And now they're going to start to see these foods maybe show up in their results. So if carrots shows up in my Spark scan results, should I also eat carrots? So if I'm doing a sleep info boost and somehow carrots show up as a positive, is that something that you would encourage is to try and add foods into their diet as well?
Well, you can. If you look at this example that's on the screen, carrots 18%. That's a low number. I wouldn't eat carrots if it showed up at 18%. I mean, that to me is not saying eat more carrots. That's on the low end. But let's say carrots showed up with 99% on a sleep scan. Well, let me back up, George. These foods are not going to be in the preset info boosts because we didn't load them in. Right. Remember, the sleep info boost consists of boost ingredients that have a known effect on sleep. So if you took those products or those items that are in that info boost and you consume them physically, you would expect to get some kind of positive impact on sleep. That's how we build those info boosts.
Right.
When we loaded the products, these foods, into the library, we did not assign any of those to any of those pre-built info boosts. So the only place you're going to see the food show up is either going to be in the common foods list or in the all ingredients.
All ingredients, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there are some exceptions to that because some of these things we have assigned. They were in. Like on my list that I just showed you, tarragon, well, that's in the list. That was there ahead of time, and that's going to be in some of these info boosts. But anyway, maybe that was too much information. The point, so back to this question, if it shows up as a high number, do I want to eat more? Yeah, if you want to. If it shows up as a low number, do you want to avoid it? That's the whole idea behind this new protocol.
Great. Okay. Yeah, and thank you for that clarification. I know that a lot of times after I do an info boost, I will go into all ingredients just to take a peek and see what's happening there. And so that's where I would bump into those types of things.
That's right.
But, okay. Great question. Great. Thank you for that answer. That helps. Okay. Here's the big one. Allergies. If I'm allergic to peanuts and they show up in my Spark scan results with a high percentage, what do I do?
Well, you don't eat them. Let's say that peanuts, we're seeing a 66% on this example. Let's say that it showed up at 99%.
Okay.
So peanuts was at the top of the list, and you have a known peanut allergy. You don't bet the ranch on a limbic arc scan. Now, what that means is if I have a known allergy like peanuts and it shows up at the top of the list, I'm still not going to eat it because I know that I have an allergy to it.
Yes.
Could I use it in an info boost? The answer is yes, I could, because an info boost is just information. And it's analogous to me saying to you peanuts. If you have an allergy to peanuts and I talk to you about peanuts, that's not going to put you over the top. You're not going to have an allergic reaction. It's just information. And that's the same in an info boost. It's information delivered in a different way, but it is still information. Okay. But I would not translate that as saying, oh, I'm over my peanut allergy, I can go out and eat peanuts. You may be sorry you did. And so, you have to use common sense and realize that information and your body's response to information can be different than your body's response to chemistry. So use caution, use wisdom, use common sense. Okay.
That was a fantastic explanation. I know that there are people who have lots of concerns about that. So thank you, Dr. Cook. Okay, so here's the question. What if there are foods, we added, how many, 264? And I know that there were already some foods in the library as well. But if there are things that you don't see in there that you feel like that they should be in the library, how do you put in a request? And the answer to that is very simple. Ta-dam! Suggestions at limbicarc.com. So,
George, let me interject here. We generally don't put in foods that are recipes. An example would be curry. Curry is not a plant. It's not a single, ingredient. It's a number of ingredients, and it's different in different areas. So if I say curry, it may be something to you that's entirely different to me because you put different stuff in your curry. So you will never see curry show up in this food list because of that complexity.
It's a combination. That's a great point.
Yeah. So if you look at this list, and I think there's about 350 items in it, give or take, and you don't see, my favorite dish is, something my mother used to put together, and you send it over and we do some research and say, well, this is not one thing, this is lots of things. We'll likely put the lots of things in the list, but we won't put mom's recipe in. So.
Okay. Well, and that only makes sense. That only makes sense to me because we're trying to really closely identify the thing, sugar is in all. It was interesting as I was going through the list, I looked at beans, for example, and there were a number of different types of beans. Is it exhaustive? Well, of course not. But again, when it comes to common foods, which is the ingredient, these are the common foods that are eaten. So,
well, and again, George, back to your point, that is, there may be parts of the world where a certain bean is eaten and we just missed it because we're not aware of that. So if you see foods that you think should be in there, please send it over to suggestions. We'll put it in. We realize that Limbic Arc is a global product, and trying to address the common foods that we all eat is a bit of work, you know. So we appreciate any suggestions we can get.
Well, look, every time we add additional ingredients into the library, this becomes a more effective tool for everybody, for everything. So I'm excited about these developments. Dr. Cook, I'm really excited about foods not to eat and how you introduced that to us today. Everybody that has Limbic Arc now has an experiment that they can go try that they didn't know they could do before. And it just became more valuable to everyone.
Yeah, the stuff we put in our mouth is more significant than we think.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that. I'm excited for what we can all do now. I hope everybody goes and does a food to avoid scan just to try it and see what happens. And again, if you would like to hear this or any of the other calls that we've done, you can go and see them on our website or on our YouTube channel. You can go to limbicarc.com if you've got questions, ask Dr. Cook, or suggestions if you've got ingredients that maybe we should take a look at. Dr. Cook, thank you again for everything that you do, and we're excited.
Hey, good to be here, and see you all soon, everybody.
Everybody out there, be healthy.